I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. We are cruising into Super Wildcard Weekend, so we will have a full preview of all 6 games over a 3-day span. But before that, Dennis and I thought we were done bidding farewell to NFL coaches after Black Monday and Dark Tuesday, but Miami Dolphins said not so fast. After Mike McDaniel talked about helping search for the next GM and their partnership going forward, today they bid him farewell. Probably not the biggest shock, or it wouldn't have been the biggest shock in the middle of the season. I actually thought the Dolphins played better and had pretty much locked in on him staying. Were you surprised that he got bid farewell?
I think I am a little bit surprised. It seemed like the team was fighting for him, and it felt like they had basically pinned the Tua contract on Chris Greer, and we're going to let McDaniel try to fight his way out of it. Teams kind of get in a mess sometime, and while the GM and head coach often work pretty close together to get the right players in-house, I certainly don't think there was a disconnect a la Deshaun Watson when it came to the Tua extension. But I do think the team had pretty much blamed that on Chris Greer. That being said, McDaniel must not have had a great exit meeting with Stephen Ross for him to go, you know what, I think I'm going to reconsider my initial decision. We were talking beforehand, and you brought up a great point. I think I agree with you. I think that Ross is like, I think we can get John Harbaugh, and if we can get John Harbaugh, we got to make this. We got to at least make the pitch.
Well, and the rumors were yesterday that they were talking with John Harbaugh, which I thought was kind of a grim sign. The rumors were Tampa Bay took a run at him today, too, and they announced today Todd Bowles is staying, but Bowles had to fire his offensive coordinator and his quarterback.
Fired everybody there.
Yeah, so, I mean, poor Baker. It's like his entire NFL career going to be a new offensive coordinator every year. It's just gets to be a joke at some point in time. Speaking of jokes, Chiefs, it has not been a good year for them, and that is continuing even though they've already been eliminated and their season is over. Rashee Rice already had to adjudicate a criminal issue once, and now his ex-girlfriend has come out with allegations of a domestic abuse spanning over an 8-year period. Obviously, the investigation just beginning. I saw some people online saying that there were rumors about this and about his character when he was coming into the NFL out of college. This is probably not what you want to see if you're Kansas City trying to figure out how to get the ship back on track. Do you think that this portends something poor for Rashee Rice?
Well, it certainly doesn't look good. And, there were a couple photos out there of her with bruising and whatnot. And to be honest, it's for whatever reason, the domestic violence rate in the NFL is much higher than real life. And maybe it's not really, maybe it just gets noticed more because in real life, a lot more of it goes unreported. I don't have any numbers to really back that up. It just feels like that in any given time, any member of the NFL could be facing something like this. You know, ultimately, it comes down to, you know, quit throwing up crosses and shit and start being a good person. I think that getting to the point where you just are nice to people and you make good decisions, it's not that hard to do. I get it. You can have disagreements, but you don't go around hitting women. And if a woman is abusive towards you, do what we tell women to do. Leave. Don't stay in the relationship. It's easy enough as a guy. Men still have a decided advantage when it comes to life and how things are tilted in our favor. So don't put yourself in those positions. And I think if it comes out that there was a history of this, and it's legitimate, he's going to end up with another suspension because he already has had a nice long suspension. It'll be, conduct detrimental to the shield kind of suspension. So if this comes out and it's all valid, it wouldn't surprise me if he's out for a year. Now, how long is it going to take? They'll kick it down the road as far as they can for as long as they can. But at some point, it's got to be resolved.
One piece of happier news, the Saints reported that they are sticking with Tyler Shough as their starter going into 2026 and going to build around him. I think you and I both thought he showed some promise down the stretch. The Saints themselves showed some promise down the stretch. Do you like this move?
I think for where the Saints are, sure. They let Kellen Moore bring in his guy, and they had Shough kind of adjust. They gave Spencer Rattler the benefit of the doubt. The team wasn't going anywhere this year. They're in rebuild. They've been in serious cap situations for what seems like 2 decades. And Mickey Loomis just keeps, playing Moneyball and 3-card Monty with their salary cap. At some point, it'll catch up. There's going to be changes there. Outside of that, Alvin Kamara is still signed, and he'll get healthy. I don't know if Taysom Hill is going to be out the door. Cam Jordan's getting old. They need some work on the O-line. They could use a second receiver to pair with Chris Olave. I'm excited to see what they do. I think that Spencer Rattler is, a competent backup at this point. He had his opportunity, and frankly, as much as I liked him coming out, it felt like he played scared. While he didn't make a ton of mistakes, he played to not make mistakes. And Shough went in there and basically said, well, what do I got to lose? I'm a 25-year-old rookie with a long injury history. It's like Eminem said, I got one shot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the wild card playoffs get started on Saturday. We have 2 games Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and 1 on Monday night. So we're going to start the preview. We'll start with the first matchup, which is taking place on Saturday afternoon. The 12-5 Los Angeles Rams at the 8-9 Carolina Panthers. There are 4 wild cards who are actually favored in wild card weekend. The Rams are one of them and have by far the biggest spread. They are favored by 10.5 points. And that would make sense because, we didn't think Carolina was a great team. The Rams look like a pretty good team. But on November 30th, which was not that long ago, the Rams went to play in Carolina and actually lost 31-28. Devontae Adams is healthy. Will be back for the playoffs. He was in that game, actually caught 2 touchdowns. Matthew Stafford had a rough day, had a couple of turnovers, including a pick 6. Bryce Young actually tossed 3 touchdowns in that game and had some big, deep throws. So everything tells us it should be the Rams, but we actually saw this game not that long ago, and the Rams didn't get the win. What do they need to do to change that on Saturday?
I feel like the Rams just have to go out and play their game. The Carolina win feels very much like a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while kind of approach. It was one of the few games this year Bryce Young threw for over 200 yards, and I get it. He had a decent game. Made a big play at the end, 43-yard touchdown pass to Tetaroa McMillan. And then the defense was able to hold the Rams for the last, 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes of the game, not give up another score. So do the Panthers have a puncher's chance of doing it again? Sure. They've got a history now to be able to lean back on and say, look, we've played this team and we've beat this team. We can do it again. Unfortunately, the Rams have a whole bunch of wins, and Carolina is in the playoffs with a losing record. It's one of those weird games where the home team is favored by double, or the road team is favored by double digits. The Rams ran the ball well in the last game. Corum had 81 yards. Kyron Williams had 72 yards. The Carolina defense is 20th versus the run, gives up the fourth most rushing touchdown. So I think the blueprint is there for the Rams to be able to keep the ball away from them. The downside was, Stafford and a couple turnovers in the last game ended up with the Rams at about a 10-minute time of possession deficit, which is really, I think, what won it for Carolina.
Yeah, and the question has to be, can Bryce, he made some pretty incredible throws in that game. He seemed to be in his zone. It's amazing. I was looking at stats because I remember watching the second half, but he was only 15 of 20 and only 206 yards, but 3 touchdowns and 3, I think, longer touchdowns. I know I saw the Tetaroa McMillan one.
35, 33, and 43 yards.
Yeah, so that's I agree with you. Carolina has a puncher's chance, but even so, I'm picking the Rams. I think the Rams actually are positioning themselves to make a deeper run. And part of me wonders if that first time they were in Carolina, if it wasn't a little bit of a trap game because they were coming off of a big win over the Seahawks and then had just beaten the Buccaneers. And we're like, oh, well, we got this.
And it's easy to do. You coaches talk all the time. You can't let down. Every opponent matters. But, you look at how teams are playing and stuff, and it's easy to kind of catch a sucker punch.
Yeah. The other game on Saturday also has a wild card that's favored. That is the 9-6-1 Green Bay Packers, who are 1.5-point favorites in Chicago against the 11-6 Bears. These two teams, obviously division rivals, played each other pretty close together during the season. Their first matchup was in Green Bay. That took place on December 7th, and the Packers got a 28-21 home win. 2 weeks later, after a loss to the Broncos, they lost again to the Bears, 22-16. That was a game where the Packers actually had a lead. No Josh Jacobs in that second game. Jordan Love got knocked out of that game, and Malik Willis had to finish. Chicago made a pretty furious comeback, scoring 13 points in the fourth quarter, and then had that bomb to DJ Moore in overtime to get the win. I think it's unfair that the Packers are favored, but this is a division rivalry. A lot of people think they were the better team in both games. Is it a matter of the Packers kind of needing to get it together and stay healthy, and they'll have it?
So the Packers' loss was in overtime, and in their win, the yardage was fairly similar. I think the reason that you favor the Packers is that It's the fantasy. It's that old fantasy conundrum. I need upside. Well, the Bears have upside. The Packers are consistent. They're not a team that's gonna out of the blue put up 40 points, but they're also not likely to uh, put up three unless they sit everybody on their team in the last game of the season. Um, so you kind of feel like the Packers, they're going to be more consistent. They're going to score points. They're going to play good on defense. The Bears are more erratic. They could put up a bunch of points. Caleb Williams could throw 3 interceptions. They could have a mystery game where all of a sudden they can't run the ball. The Bears, I think, were second in the NFL in rushing. It's defense. Where did it go? Third in the NFL in rushing. So some of that is that Caleb Williams can move the ball, but DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai are great running the ball as well. Josh Jacobs, because of injuries, didn't top 1,000 yards this year. It'll be interesting to watch. With the Packers, they say the home team gets 3 points, and with it being 1.5, you kind of got to say, well, it's why didn't they just call it even? But I don't know. The Packers have to hope Christian Watson doesn't land on the ball because he provides their explosiveness. Matthew Golden has not been able to settle in and carve out a role. Romeo Doubs is the most consistent. Losing Tucker Kraft was big. As much as I liked Luke Musgrave coming out and his ability to maybe step in and give you 80% of what Tucker Kraft did, he just hasn't done that. So getting a healthy or healthy-ish Jordan Love back is definitely going to be a plus. But I don't know. I like the Bears because of their explosiveness. Luther Burden seems to be breaking out as we head into the postseason.
Odunze is healthy and will be back as well.
Yeah, and they're very different type of players. Odunze is the big downfield threat. Burden's the kind of at the line of scrimmage, can take it 90 yards. I think in Colston Loveland's breaking out and having a great season. I hate that DJ Moore is tied up in a contract because I'd like to see him go somewhere where he's going to get volume, but it seems like Ben Johnson hates DJ Moore in the manner of which we all expected he was going to hate DeAndre Swift and kind of didn't. So I think the Bears are going to be able to run the ball. Caleb Williams is going to be able to provide some splash plays with that passing offense. The offensive line struggled at the beginning of the season, and they've really started to gel some. So I'm taking the Bears.
Yeah, I get the Green Bay hype. I think old habits die hard. In preseason, they were a Super Bowl, contender or favorite. They've had a lot of injuries. I just think they're discombobulated. They've lost 4 straight games. They haven't had Jordan Love since the first half of that first Chicago game. He hasn't even played. Josh Jacobs been in and out. I am also taking the Bears. There's just something about this Bears team.
They got momentum going in the wrong direction.
The Packers do. I like the Bears because there's just something about them. They've been coming back. They've been holding strong. I think they're at home. It's going to be a terrible weather game, so I'm going with the Bears as well. Those are the 2 Saturday games. That Packers-Bears is the Saturday primetime. There are 3 games on Sunday in the traditional windows during the day, and then Sunday night football. The first of those, and so we had 2 games already where the teams have played each other in the regular season. The other 4 matchups, the teams have not played each other this season, so it can be a first-time matchup, and that's the case for the first game, which is the 12-5 Buffalo Bills at the 13-4 Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the 6-3 matchup. This was probably another one of the surprises for me that the wild card team was favored. The Bills have had an uneven season, but they are -1.5 going into this game. I looked back on it, 12-5, not that different than Jacksonville. It feels like Jacksonville really ended in a strong groove and kind of played their best football the last few weeks in December. but they have not gotten a ton of respect. I think people still have some doubts about Trevor Lawrence. Josh Allen, former MVP, I get that. The rushing champion, James Cook. But what do you make of this matchup?
So the Bills led the league in rushing, and they were 15th in passing. James Cook has had a phenomenal year. We're in that pendulum swing where the best backs are all these 200-pound backs instead of these 225-pounders. And James Cook is certainly in that mold. He's very explosive. I think that the Bills are going to struggle a little bit with their inability to have an alpha wide receiver. Keon Coleman's been in and out, and he's the one that has the physical profile. And so because he hasn't worked out, they've brought in Gabe Davis, who, is just he's just an old dude now, just a jag. Khalil Shakir is, he profiles as kind of Amon-Ra St. Brownish, but he doesn't have the top end production that Amon-Ra does. Dalton Kincaid has never really hit like I think they had hoped he would in that Travis Kelce kind of mode. And I think that's going to be tough for the Bills. It'll come back down to, can Josh Allen put this team on his shoulders and will it to victory? It's possible, but, it's definitely, they're going up against, let's see, the Jags defense is the number one rushing defense in the league. And so it's set up to be a strength against strength kind of matchup. And then even on the other side, let's see, where are the Jags? They're 21st against the pass. So I like that the opportunity will be there for Josh Allen to win the game, but he's going to have to win it doing something that this team doesn't do as well.
Yeah, and I went back and forth on this one. I do think it's a little disrespectful to the season Jacksonville had that the Bills are favored. I kind of get, I think in the odds makers' minds and in a lot of public bettors' minds, they see Buffalo and they see Green Bay, and those are just teams they're laying on. There's something about the Jaguars I still just don't trust. I can't totally put my finger on it, but I am picking the Bills.
I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I'm in on Liam Cohen and the upswing that Trevor Lawrence has got going on with Jacoby Myers. Brenton Strange is back. They seem to have settled in the backfield with ETN and Tootin in some pretty defined roles right now. I'm going with the new hotness in Liam Cohen, and I think the Bills are going to continue. I get it. This is the year, no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar. It's the year for Josh Allen to finally go win one. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm taking the Jags.
The middle game on Sunday is the 12-5 San Francisco 49ers at the 11-6 Philadelphia Eagles. The line opened with the Eagles -4.5. It is currently up to Eagles -5.5. And I think a lot of that has to do with the 49ers continuing to be beat all up. Trent Williams is back to a limited practice. George Kittle back to a limited practice, but both of them are very banged up. Ricky Pearsall not practicing. Looks like he is not going to be able to go. I asked you on Tuesday if it just felt like the 49ers were too beat up. Those are three pretty critical pieces if you wanted to beat Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia's biggest question is whether their offensive players actually get their head in the game and get their butt in gear. But what do you make of this matchup?
So the Eagles, in the trenches, they've had to do some rebuilding. They brought Brandon Graham back. Is it Jalen Carter or the other Georgia defensive tackle?
They have Jalen Carter.
Don't they have two Georgia defensive tackles, though? One of them has kind of been in and out of the lineup a little bit. And
I think
had
Jalen
some.
Carter has missed a couple of games. He
So
is on the injury report. He has a hip issue, but he is back to practicing. So is Lane Johnson for the Eagles and Dallas Goedert, all practicing.
the Eagles have showed us that they can, when forced to, make some plays in the passing game. They've got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, who could both, you put them on separate teams and make them the focal point, and they could finish as the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Instead, they're on the same team in one of the lowest passing volume teams in the league. And so they're kind of fighting for scraps, it feels like sometimes. And it ends up, not being quite as productive. Barkley's had another good year. I think it's reasonable to expect that he wasn't going to duplicate last season. But for somebody who had 450 touches or whatever it was last year, I think he's held up pretty good this year. The 49ers defense has lost some pieces, and they're not getting them back this year. So they're having to make do. I think Robert Saleh has done a great job with that defense. Unfortunately, Saleh may be one of these guys that ends up being Peter principled, that he just isn't a great head coach, but he's a phenomenal coordinator. I think he potentially, with 8 openings, could get another shot this cycle, but it's a defense that plays hard for him, and they've got some good players. It'll be interesting to watch, with Trent Williams back and playing good, George Kittle back and healthy, and with Jake Tongas coming on, they can run a lot more 2 tight end stuff than they ever have, and be productive. I don't know what's going to happen with Ricky Pearsall. He's injured again. I don't know if he's out or not.
He is not practicing. I mentioned that he is likely out.
Okay. So, that puts it all back on Juwan Jennings' shoulders, Demarcus Robinson, and George Kittle. And
it's not a lock that Kittle plays either. He has an ankle injury. He missed their regular season finale, and he is a limited participant. I mean, that's where, like, for the 49ers, Pearsall's probably out. If they don't get Kittle and Trent Williams back, if one or both of them misses, I don't see how they're in much better shape than they were against the Seahawks, and the Eagles actually have a pretty good defense.
Yeah, the Eagles' pass defense is 8th in the league, and their rush defense was where'd they go? I lost them. Their rush defense was only 22nd. So if Christian McCaffrey, if it weren't for James Cook and some of these other guys, McCaffrey is setting up to be, next year, he's either going to be a league breaker or a league winner, because we've seen it historically when he has these super high volume seasons. He ends up kind of dealing with stuff the next season or two. But if he doesn't, and he comes back next year, and he hasn't been very efficient running the ball most of this season. He got more efficient here at the end of the year, but the Niners were very okay with him averaging 3.2, 3.3, targeting him 12 times and him putting up 100 yards through the air. I think the Eagles, they're going to want to keep it a time of possession game, so they can run the ball. They can keep Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings off the field. Ultimately, this is the one game in the mix here I haven't quite picked yet, and I'm trying to talk myself into one of the teams. It would be an upset if San Francisco wins. I think I'm going to stick with the Eagles. So,
yeah, I'm taking the Eagles too. I don't know if they'll cover the spread, which is getting progressively larger, but I think that they are going to pull out a win at home. Sunday night ends with matchup in the AFC. The seventh seeded Los Angeles Chargers, 11-6, at the second seeded New England Patriots, 14-3. Patriots are the only other home team that is favored in Wild Card Weekend. They are favored by 3.5 points. The Chargers have some injury woes still. Omarion Hampton is not practicing and may not be able to go. Bud Dupree, who got injured against Denver, is not practicing and may not be able to go. Same for Keandre Lambert-Smith. That's already has them a little bit thinner. I think also this is a big pressure game for both of these quarterbacks. Justin Herbert has been pretty great in regular seasons and pretty terrible in playoff games. And Drake May, a lot of buzz for him potentially to be NFL MVP, first chance to kind of prove it at home on the big stage. So what do you think from this Sunday night football matchup?
You know, Mike Vrabel has made his bones on being a tough-nosed, hard defense. Christian Gonzalez is one of the top defensive backs in the league, top cornerbacks. He's got the defense playing pretty well. They're inconsistent in the passing game, even with Drake May. By inconsistent, I mean, you just, from a fantasy standpoint, it's like, who do you count on as a receiver? Yeah, you can count on Drake May. He's the guy you want out of that passing game. It's the same thing with Josh Allen. It's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. You know, you don't know from week to week who it's going to be. Stephon Diggs seems to be having a little bit of off-field issues cropping up again. Kyle Williams has come on a little bit. Kayshon Boutte's back healthy. So New England does have some weapons. Ramondre Stevenson had a monster game last week. And Travion Henderson is explosive as ever. And then Hunter Henry just provides consistency from the tight end position. When Drake May needs bailed out, Hunter Henry's his guy. Herbert, you know, they're playing with what, 2 third-string tackles now.
Yeah, it might even be worse than that.
But they've been able to overcome it. Part of it is Herbert's mobility. Part of it is that Herbert's 6'6" and 230 pounds. He's a big, strong dude. And some of it is he's getting rid of the ball quickly. So he's got a really nice receiving core with Allen and McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Aronde Gadsden, Trey Harris. It'll be interesting to see. We've seen Kamani Vidal be a very good back in this offense. If Omarion Hampton is out, I'm not terribly concerned that the running game won't be productive. I think it's going to not have the same kind of power that Omarion Hampton can provide. But I do think that they'll be able to run the ball reasonably well. It's to me, it'll come down to coaching, I think, and I'm Team Vrabel over Jim Harbaugh.
Don't let the president hear you saying that, but I am also taking the New England Patriots. I just think they've had a pretty good season and that they will come through at home. The final game of Wild Card Weekend, Monday Night Football, the 12-5 Houston Texans, the number 5 seed in the AFC, at the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers, the number 4 seed. The Texans, the last of the 4 road teams that are favored, they are favored -3. The Texans come in having won 9 straight games, looking pretty impressive along the way. They have the number 1 defense in the league. And CJ Stroud, I think, has been coming on and looking better of late. The Steelers, meanwhile, defense has been suspect at times, great at other times. Offense has been hit or miss, but they do get DK Metcalf back. And it's hard to count out that Aaron Rodgers magic. Most people don't think Pittsburgh has much of a chance. Do you?
So when you say magic and Aaron Rodgers in the same sentence, all I can picture is Toto pulling back the curtain on the Wizard. You know, feels like the magic is ending.
Or the ayahuasca he takes in the hut. I will say I'm not a huge Rodgers fan, but I watched almost all of the second half of that Sunday night game, and he made some pretty spectacular throws when he had to.
He's got a great arm still at 42 years old or whatever it is, and he's going to get DK Metcalf back, so that's a plus. Houston just has a monster defense. It's going to be a pretty good defensive battle. Houston's 6th against the pass, and I think they're 4th against the run. So it'll end up being, I think, a competitive game, in part because Houston doesn't blow people out. So they're not going to get out to a quick 21-point lead and then grind it out. They may try, but they don't have the running game for that. Houston's going to have to score points and then hope that they can convert something in the running game. Can Woody Marks give them something? Can Nick Chubb give them something? It feels like a running game that's going to average about 3 yards a carry against the Steelers. And we're going to have to see, can CJ Stroud just keep moving the chains in the passing game? And I'm not 100% sold that he can. These last couple seasons, he just has not been he hasn't lived up to the rookie hype. It's not that he's playing terrible. It's just that he just hasn't been able to make the big plays. Now, a healthy Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins is coming on, Jaden Noel or Jalen Noel, whichever it is, is playing well out of the slot, rotating with Christian Kirk. I like the 2 big wide receivers for Houston to be able to make some plays. Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins are both dynamic receivers. And while sometimes that suspect Houston O-line can give up a lot of pressure to Stroud, that's what Pittsburgh is going to have to do, is get pressure on him. And TJ Watt's back healthy. Cameron Hayward is playing as good as he has, I think, all season. He played great last week. So if they're getting some pressure on Stroud, then it's gonna come down to, can the receiving game make big plays? I'm gonna lean Texans here. I don't know if I would bet the spread. I think it's gonna be a close game.
Well, it's only the spread. So that seems a little more reasonable, but I'm taking the Texans too. I think ultimately that defense is gonna. What I would be most concerned about is they cave in and put a lot of pressure. We saw what they did in Buffalo, just smothering Josh Allen, who is one of the more unsackable quarterbacks in the league, and we've seen consistently that Rodgers doesn't hold up well if he gets hit or if he gets pressured. And I think that would be what scares me the most. So I'm excited. I think it's a pretty wide open playoffs and 6 pretty compelling matchups. So hopefully it'll be a fun weekend. I know you're probably excited to watch them too. Do you want to give me your picks for the college football games? I know there's one tonight and one tomorrow.
Yeah. So tonight is Miami and
it should be Miami and Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Honestly, I got to go with Miami because of stability. The Ole Miss coaching staff is in disarray. They let a good portion of the staff that's going to LSU continue to coach, but didn't let the head coach stay coaching. Maybe they win despite that. Trinidad Chambliss has been playing great, the Ole Miss quarterback. This is going to be a run here where potentially Carson Beck can restore his draft stock. If he can win tonight and get to the championship game and play decent there, even if he doesn't win, I think he starts to move back up draft boards pretty quickly because it's a dismal quarterback class.
And then tomorrow, number 5 Oregon at number 1 Indiana. It's hard to imagine Indiana doesn't advance.
go Big Ten. Yeah, Signetti just seems to be having, and the Hoosiers, they seem to be having just one of those seasons that, when it all comes together and no matter what, you just can't seem to do anything wrong. That seems to be what's going on for the Hoosiers.
Well, no matter what, it is 5 consecutive nights of pretty fun primetime games, which is great for us. Maybe not great for the ladies in our lives. So, gentlemen, this is your warning to start planning something epic for Valentine's Day now, because the seasons will be over, and she deserves it.
Yeah.
Dennis, if people have some time on their hands in between games, what can they do?
Head over to your favorite portable media device, hit that search bar, find your favorite podcast platform, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a like, give us a subscribe. See my new Kiss Funkos I got for Christmas from my son.
That's pretty cool. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend of football and all your teams do well. I'm just grateful that I can just sit back and watch the playoffs this weekend. Don't have to stress about the Broncos. All that changes for me on Tuesday, but we will see how it goes. And we'll be back on Tuesday recapping the games. You guys have a wonderful weekend.